All right. What's up, everybody? It's Herschel Fruin, High School Top 200, and this is the Top 200 podcast. I guess we're going to talk about some stuff. First, we'll talk about the games because, that's probably the most important thing is the games. I mean, you do have the Super 8 final. I mean, that's got to be a big one. The number one team in the country, and going against Rotorua, and it's more of like a rivalry than anything else. Probably one of the bigger rivalries, especially within this area, in this Chiefs region. It's got to be one of the biggest ones. And I know the two schools aren't really... I think it's like a healthy respect for each other. That's what you'd probably say about it. It's like a healthy respect. And most of the time Hamilton has their numbers, I guess, especially within the... lately, Hamilton have always gone through Rotorua boys and for most part get the win. Rotorua's had some wins, obviously when they won the national title as well, so that was obviously one of those times. But yeah, that's one of the games. Then we have Scots College and Silverstream on the Sunday. That's the other game. Another, I guess, new traditional one because Scots haven't been good for... there was years and years and years where they just weren't good at all, weren't even considered. But now, as of late, they've been a pretty big powerhouse. As of late, the UC Championship final as well with Christchurch boys and Stack St Andrews. There's a big one, and then Rathkill and Wairarapa. That's the other game that I know of. There's, I think that's the only other one that's being played this week. If there's some others, like send it on. Those are the only ones that I know of. But that Rathkill and Wairarapa one is a big one for their rivalry as well. And I know it means a lot to those teams, whoever takes that win. But I mean, Aotea and Porirua played just the other night with Porirua winning the Beard Trophy, which is a massive surprise over Aotea. I thought Aotea was going to win that one, but I guess not. I watched part of the Matakura and St. Mary's game, the girls game, which I thought was pretty cool. And I'm writing a piece as well. Maybe I'll just talk about it on here as well. But I'll still write about it, but I'll talk about it on here as well because I think it's real important to give some of those girls some light. But I'll pretty much talk a little bit about it on here after this. But this Hamilton and Rotorua boys game, right? It's going to me, and I'll say it's going to be Hamilton boys. I think that they're going to win. Hamilton boys are just too structured. Everybody is playing good. I think they got a little bit arrogant last week against Napier boys, and it's just one of those things that I guess when you know that you've got 15 on 14, you just automatically sort of go into relax mode, and you kind of like the urgency is not there. I guess the fight isn't there either, and then Hamilton boys really didn't play good for that second half of the game. And that's when they're usually on fires in that second half, and they just didn't. And it took like the last 7 or 8 minutes for them to actually kick in and then try and get a bit of space. But I mean, Hamilton boys, probably just in that game, that's probably the only game that I saw them really battle out of. Palmy was the other one that I saw them really battle out of as well, and it took a lot for them to get out of that. And so Napier last week was just one of those kind of games that the win was inevitable, but they really had to. I think they worked too hard to get it, because if they had just stuck to their game, they should have blown them out by a massive, massive deal of points. Because they just did it the week before that too. They should have, did it by even more. But yeah, the arrogance, I think of it. I can't say arrogance. Not arrogance. There was just no fight in it anymore once they knew that they were going to be, that they were 14 on 15. And so, yeah. But I think Hamilton's a bit too structured right now. Everybody's on fire. Everybody's in sync. They are really healthy as well, which is the other thing that is on their side. And they've got a lot of experience where Rotorua boys don't have a lot of experience in the back line. And I guess apart from Bless, because him at halfback, he'll be the one. Xavier's playing really, really good as well at first five. And I've seen him have some really good games. I still kind of think that there is that second five issue where they haven't really got it solved. I'm not too sure when Junior is back, but I guess they just got to get it solved in a way that they have more. What's the words? Like, they have a lot more rhythm to their game. Because I found that a lot of the times when they were playing, it kind of, they would have a lot of parts in the game where they just weren't in sync as a backline. I think that because their forwards are so good, they were able to not like hide, but they were kind of bailed out in a way, with the forwards being able to play good, with Jordan Hutchings playing good. Kinney's been playing really good as well. And I guess that, like, when you have a forward pack like that, I think it's a bit easier to I think it's just a bit easier to just rely on them. And I think that's kind of what Rotorua has done throughout this year, is that they've kind of relied a lot on their forwards, even though Xavier has had some good control over the game and has had good opportunities to really show what their team can do. I still felt like, in a way, that they just relied too much on that forward pack. And it's understandable, like, when you have Haruta, Takahashi, and Kinney for Noah, as well as Jordan Hutchings, Hutchings, who's going to be around the field all the time. Not that you're going to get lazy, but you're just going to be too reliant on what they can do. And that's kind of how I've sort of watched Rotorua throughout this year. Bless Parisi Elliott has been good. I've got to start saying people's last names. I'm sorry. Bless Parisi Elliott has been steady in the way that he's been able to control that forward pack. And I think he sometimes gets them out of a lot of things by turning it to the forwards and having Dana in that um, really take the ball up and I guess set good rucks and good attacking opportunities for the backs. And then Manny Smith, who's been out at centre, to me, has probably been a big save to them after Junior went down. And just having Nemani Smith's, I guess, explosiveness is what you really want. And so he provided that when he came in. John Horua at fullback has always been really steady and learning at the speed. And as good as a player as he is, to me, he still hasn't got it yet. Like, he still hasn't figured it out yet. But once he figures it out, it's going to be pretty bad for everybody once he figures it out. Because then you're going to start seeing him run a bit more smoother, pick and choose the times when he wants to kick and run and sort of really assess the situation faster. And then the game looked like it gets slower to him. Tuato Porima is the number 8 that they have right now. And he's the one that I think they need to turn to more for his running game. And he is such a solid physical runner who has great balance, takes hits really well, and never sort of really gives up on the run. And I think that they should create a lot more plays for him and to get him out into situations where he can be able to be that effective with the ball, and he can have those opportunities to be put in a mismatch with other defenders and then sort of just run through them like he has been. And I think once he gets going, it's going to be hard for a lot of guys to stop him. And I mean, and to me, he just looks like a league player. Like, if I was choosing a league team, I would have him definitely as one of my runners, as like a, maybe a 13, maybe an 8, something like that, 8 or 10. Have him up in the front row, just have him hitting, just having him hit the line, things like that. But he's one of the better runners that I've seen this year. But yeah, I think there should be a lot more plays drawn up for him, and then seeing what he could do. Tama Whareaorere is probably the other one that that I would probably look at next year for my go-to guy. Like, he's been switched into lock, which has been really good because he's been next to Kenny Whanua, who's been really solid since he's been down there at Rotorua Boys, and so it's really lifted his game personally as well. But Te Hamana Teaute is probably the guy that I'm still looking at him as a second 5, even though they've got Liliano Sebastian is the other guy, or Sabatini, I think his name is, the young kid, year 11 kid. Once those guys are mature and up there, like, that's why, like, next year I think that this backline is going to be dangerous at Rotorua Boys, because they're going to have all these boys back, and a lot of these boys back, and like I said with John, it's like once they figure it out, it's not going to be good for everybody. Like, they're just going to struggle to hold the youth of this backline, and so really looking forward to that and seeing what happens. But against Hamilton Boys, I just think it's like a different story. They're just too good in their structures and the way that Hamilton Boys deals with things. Noah Hotham is just too good. He's too quick, too fast, too smart. Stays positive, and he's always poised and patient in the way that he attacks. Like there was a lot of times where um, he baited them and baited them that he was gonna, you know, run out of, run right on the edge of that ruck and in that A gap, and then once Napier Boys didn't really bite on it, he just took off, and he did that 2 times or 3 times, and then they ended up scoring off it and getting down the field. But then that's just the way that he is and the way that he does things, and it just works every time. And so that's something that Rotorua is going to have to figure out how they're going to maintain and manage. I mean, maybe they'll have to do it sort of like a quarterback is, like a running quarterback, like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes kind of thing, where you just put a linebacker on him and he just watches him, pretty much doesn't move and just follows him, side to side, and sort of once he hits into that gap, they just sort of blitz it and then close up the gap. And that's kind of like what Rotorua is probably going to have to try and do, is just that no one leaves that A gap, that don't leave too early, making sure that, I guess, the B gap guy is the one that pushes forward, or that maybe has a little bit of a gap, but the A gap guy doesn't, that guide dog that's right there doesn't leave at all and doesn't jump the gun, and is just patient and just holds his place. And then hopefully Rotorua get tackles in bunches again and just holds them up, because they did that a lot against New Plymouth Boys, which is pretty much what won them the game in the end, is that they started getting turnovers that way. And Napier Boys New Plymouth Boys just didn't know how to handle it. I mean, if Rotorua can sort of mimic that in some way again, maybe change a little bit of maybe change a little bit here and there, I feel like Rotorua can push them. But ultimately, to me, it's just Hamilton Boys, and there's no pressure on Rotorua to win. All the pressure to me is on Hamilton Boys to win. They're the ones that have the better record, the playing, the more in form, and they're the ones, I guess, that are like looked at to win, being the number one team in the country as well. Haven't lost all year, really haven't been threatened that much, and so they're going to be the ones that have all the pressure to win this game, and so also to get another title, Super 8 title. But yeah, I don't think that's really up to them. I think it's not Rotorua's game to win. It's really Hamilton Boys not losing, which is also like a pretty hard thing, I guess, for Hamilton Boys to sort of get around. But I mean, they're such a Hamilton Boys is such a confident side and confident team, and they're very sure on what they have and how they do it. And I mean, that's what they're doing. They're coming there to win. They come to every game to win. And so yeah, I'm not too sure what I feel like the point. It's hard to say, because on a bad day it can get really bad. Especially when Hamilton Boys are playing really good, it can get really bad for teams when they are on. And when they're not hassled or disrupted or anything like that. So I would say Hamilton Boys will be winning 27-15, something around that, on a good day. 27-15. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with that. I'll stay on that. I'll stay on that. Scots College and Silverstream. It's not going to be a big score, but I think Scots is going to win this one this week. Silverstream won the first one. It was 7-5 10-5, 10-7, something like that to Silverstream. And I've said it twice before that I think Scott's got more out of that game than Silverstream did. And I have this feeling that it's going to pay off for Scots College this weekend. And I have a feeling that these guys, I mean, Scots College have guys that are, I mean, there's Hans Lealta who is the hooker, and he's in that New Zealand squad that was picked. Him and Dominic Ropiti is the other one. Both of them being in there, and Dominic is always one of those guys that shows up anyway. Like, there's been a lot of, like, if you watch their highlights, so like if there was just highlights of their tries throughout the year, he's pretty much in all of them. Dominic is like, even though I don't agree with the selections, like, he was still one of the guys that I selected anyway, but in terms of part of his team, I would think that he's probably the most important part of the team, besides, along with, I guess I'd say, along with Orion Kalolo is probably the other one, and Dominic has to have a big game or a bigger game to make sure that they get the result that they're looking for, and it's not all on him, but it's, people don't like to really put pressure on players by singling them out and and talking about them like that. But it's hard to say it when that is the guy. I mean, what else do you want to say? Is that he's not? Because he is. Dominic, to me, is like one of the most important people in that team, besides Orion. With Eric Lawson gone in that back line, that does leave a massive gap. Yeti is probably supposed to be is probably a guy that needs to step up again this week. Even though he's year 11, he still has the talent and the power and the skill set to help that team. And with Riley Higgins on the other side, it's just more of a, I guess it's just more of a have to. You just have to do it, even if you are year 11. Yeti just has to get up there and make Riley work for everything. And it may be bold to say that he's got to match up to someone who's one of New Zealand's best centres right now, but Yeti's just got to have to make him work. When you run at him, just run at him like full blown, everything that you've got, just run at him and make him tackle you and make him feel it every single time that you run at him, that you're just running at him to prove that point and to show him that you're there. I would deal with it that way. And even if it's maybe a hard thing to put one of your young players on such a high caliber player like he is, but why not test yourself? Why not test him out now? Last game of the season, why not all out and just let him go? Let's see what he can do. Let's see what he can do against one of the best in the country. Yeah. Sione Halolilo is probably going to be another factor. I personally would probably like to see more from him, more attacking, just more violent, aggressive running. Um, I wanna see guys feel it when they have to tackle him, and that's how he used to be too. He used to run like that. He used to run with all that stuff. I kind of feel like it's slipping off, um, and it doesn't feel like he's aggressive all the time. Like he takes himself off that level. Whereas I feel like he just needs to keep that on and just keep that going. Um, but he would be like another one that I'll kind of look at as well in this game to see what he can do and see how he reacts to the situation and how he reacts to um, the bright light of the game and what it is. Because I don't think everyone can step up for games like this. Even as good as talented as guys are, sometimes they just don't have it or they just don't realize what the moment is, and they just don't respond. Sometimes, they just don't. They just don't get up for the game, and I think Sione has to be the guy that does it. Maya is probably another one. Maya Timmer Schmidt is probably another one that has to follow suit with Dominic as well. And I guess they're going to both be locks. I'm not too sure what the lineup is, but Maya's played really good throughout this whole year, and I kind of expect him to be one of the guys that's selected next year for New Zealand secondary schools. He's like an early look that I've been looking at for this year, and so from this year, and so I think it would be a great stage for him to sort of staple himself for. Um, I guess an early looking for next year. Just make sure that selectors know that he's there, um, and just show himself. I mean, Jonty Bird's another one that's been around for ages, and so he knows what's expected. He knows what they want from him, and so those are probably the guys that I'll probably look at to really step up in this game. Obviously, on the other side, it's going to be Silverstream and just seeing what Riley's going to do. I guess seeing what Riley's going to do, but at the same time, how they all respond to it. Because as good as Riley is by himself, and like I said, again, he's one of the best there is out there right now, but he still has another team he still has a full team around him that he can use. I mean, you still got Luke Wormsley at halfback, and then depending where they play TJ Clark, if he's going to be at first five or if they're going to bring Lockie Forbes up there, but also Polo's there as well at second five, and obviously Tony Solomon is going to be the other one that maybe that's going to be on the wing, but Riley making sure that he shows his playmaking ability as well to take the attention off him and to make sure that everyone knows that there's a lot more talent around him. There's a lot of guys out there that are able to play off the attention that he's getting. To me, Tony Solomon is going to be one of them. Lockie Forbes is obviously going to be another one. I want to see more from Junior Polo. I think, I guess taking advantage of the fact that he has a guy that is such a target, and Riley, that Junior can maybe expose some of those defensive gaps that they're going to be able to give him. Because remember, those guys are going to be, I think Scots are going to kind of overplay and and probably try and play ahead of the ball and sort of shut it down. And so I think there's going to be a few opportunities for Junior to just maybe show and go or skip pass or play kicks just in behind the defense when they move up, and that may be a place where they can really attack. Even TJ Clark might be able to look at doing stuff like that as well. Peter Lakai at number 8. Mitch Southall is going to be another one that's probably going to be big in this game at open side. Making sure this forward pack stays active, stays active and stays organized as well. Making sure that they don't lose too much shape in their attack, and that, I guess, again, this is stuff that I kind of saw, is that they would lose shape in a way that they became more one-off runners, like league players, than anything else. And which is dangerous, because like if you can get too far away from it, that you're going to be a lone runner, and then you could end up like the targets that Rotorua boys like to target, and that's guys that are lone runners and they just hold you up and they get the turnover. And Silverstream, I saw in the other games, were kind of like that, and they got to stay within their shape. They got to be able to have some timing and go together as a group and make sure that nobody is just a lone ranger on their own trying to be Superman and hit that ball up and trying to make the crowd go, ooh. Because I think that there's going to be a quick turnover if they try and play that way. They have big runners, like Marco Venta, and that are all really good runners. That year 11, who I still really like, that's Sunil Sarnella, who's another kid that I really like at prop. I think Emmanuel Solomona will come off the bench and hopefully get some really good minutes and put his weight into it too, and just offer the value that he has as a player too. I think Scots is going to win this, and I don't think it's going to be a big score either. I think it's going to be really low teens, and so I think it's going to be a 14-10 game to Scots. Yeah, I think it's going to be a 14-10 game to Scots. I think there's going to be a lot of line breaks. A lot of opportunities, and I think that everyone's going to cover tackle really well, and make those tackles that are really needed. But it's going to be a low scoring game. That's kind of how I see the game going this week for them. Christchurch boys and Stack. Obviously, Stack won the first game, which was that TV game, and it was so close, that first game, and it's going to be like that again. I think that Christchurch is going to win this game. They're just the team that is playing too good right now. They're the team that's played themselves into a position of they're in a position of form. They're the form team right now, and I think that even though Stack has these guys, 4 guys that they have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, the 4 guys that they have in that New Zealand squad. Obviously, they're going to have to stand up. Torian Barnes had a mean game. The last game, the first one that they have against Christchurch boys, even though he got that yellow card, I still thought that he was probably their best player on that day. He's the one that I always looked at when I was watching that game. He was the one that I always noticed out of everybody else. Joel Parry's probably going to have a massive game. I kind of want to see him take over a bit, Joel. I kind of want to see him, tempt a lot more of the defense, maybe dictate a lot of how they're going to move and how maybe pick them apart a bit. And I hope he just has a massive game. And because I've always been a fan of Joel ever since I seen him as a year 11, and I knew he was going to be good, and I'm so happy that he's become this good, and the way that he's developed right through the whole thing. And so I look for him to have a big game along with Torian. I think the team's problem, as a team, and it's not an individual thing, but as a team's problem, they do not play the full 70 minutes, and they seem to fall off. I don't know why that is. It's like they have to get a massive lead, knowing that they finish games poorly, and so they cannot afford to do that again, because they already did that again against Christchurch Boys in that first game, and they came out with the win, and that's fine, and that's lucky. And I say that as lucky because they could have lost their game easily, and they just need to put everything into this last game. They need to put everything into the last game. They need to play the full game. Jack Harding has probably going to have to be a lot more creative and dynamic in the way that he attacks. Play off Joel a lot, and then get Lino Tauti and also Isi Somaki in the game at second 5 and centre. I really would like to see them bully that backline of Christchurch Boys. I think it's Andrew and Cullum will probably be there at second 5 and centre, and I would like to see Lino and Isi have a go at those two and make those two defend pretty much the whole game, which will be pretty cool to watch if they can do that to them. And just have Jack Forrest and also Hugh Montgomery just sort of clean up and find those opportunities where they can go in and I guess pick little bits and pieces off here and there, or getting little 5-7 yard run or 7 meter runs here and there, but make sure that Christchurch Boys midfield really work for everything. I mean, you got two big solid guys that are physical enough, that are strong enough to overpower that Christchurch Boys midfield as well. And I think they need to show it. I think they need to show them that they can do that easily, and to keep that going for the whole game. And I hope Jack Harding sets them up a lot like that and gives them those good opportunities to do it like that, and make that a problem for Christchurch Boys to fix up at halftime. You know, I think Mini Tonga is probably going to be. He'll be the guy that probably benefits a lot from that as well, as he hangs out on the edge quite a bit, out there at centre and wing. But if you can push a lot of ball that way, make sure the defence takes doubles up on either Leno or Issy, and then has Mini out there, just sitting there, just waiting for his opportunity. I think that's going to be a big mismatch and a big problem that Christchurch Boys is going to have to fix up and find out how to stop it, which will obviously open up places elsewhere on the field. Jamie Carr needs to bring it big. Also, Tamati Frost at prop is probably going to be another one that probably needs to have a pretty big game as well. And Christchurch, I think, is pretty easy in terms of where their strengths are, because obviously, or I don't know if it's obvious to you guys, but it's obvious to me that you guys have Fabian Holland and also Fabian Holland, Alex Yellop as the two locks, and then Jamie Hanna as the 6 is what they've kind of been playing lately, which is like a pretty good 4, 5, and 6. Jordan Solfai is probably the other one there as well that they've been playing there, who's worked out really well. And then they had Zach London Zach London Lane at number 8 last week against Rangiora, and he's usually a hooker, but he played pretty good. Like I wasn't mad at him. Like I thought he was pretty solid. The way that he played out there. And so maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to it. They can have Charlie Baker back there. They'll probably have Sam Foster probably playing there. And Sam Jones, maybe. Chinga Fafita, I think, always should be starting. I don't know why they don't start him, but he's one that I thought would start. And then, obviously, in the back line, they got, Callum Simpson at centre. Ollie Curtis is obviously going to be there with Jack Sanford and what's his name? I'm spacing on his name. Let me have a look. Will Brownie is the other one that's on the other wing. I guess making sure that speed doesn't get too out of hand. That's probably going to be another one that Stack is probably going to have to worry a little bit about, and making sure that making sure that it just doesn't making sure that they don't have free range and have too many open spaces to run, because I think it's going to be a pretty dangerous thing if they let Christchurch do something like that and let them get in and out of where they want to on the field, because Christchurch easily turns those open space running and just lazy defense. They turn that stuff easily into points, and so Stack have got to do a better job at doing at holding that line. I think being a bit more disciplined and staying patient and making sure that people don't get lazy and whenever they're moving up or sliding across, or making sure that they communicate on the inside, making sure that if they're shifting across that they pull the other guy in and there's no easy gaps, stuff like that. And so I think that Christchurch Boys is going to win this game. I don't have much of a I don't have much of a score line. I don't think it might be one of those big scoreline games where it's like 30, 36-30, 36-30, or 36-32 or something like that. It might be like one of those high scoring games, but I mean, maybe with everyone so late in the season, tired and real compact, congested games, because remember, the UC Championship haven't had a break since they started, just so they can get the whole season in, and so this is a bit different, and maybe it's a bit different, but maybe they will just have one of those end of season spurts of energy, and both teams just really wanting to score tries, and maybe it'd be big. But I mean, like, I don't really know. I don't really have a scoreline sort of figured out around that kind of stuff. But maybe we'll just go something real big. Like I'll go 35-28 to Christchurch Boys. 35-28 Christchurch Boys. Have a big score like that. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, and this is something that I've been thinking about for a few years, right, is as people know, that top 200 is not supposed to just be rugby. It's supposed to be everything. Like I've always like intended that. I've built this always with the intention that I'm going to expand to other sports, and once funding comes in and support and sponsorships and things like that come in, I would hire other people from other sports that do the same thing as I do under the umbrella of Top 200 and do it for all the other sports, so that we can have all the talent that we have from high school. All of them can get exposure around the world and hopefully get picked up into opportunities where they can extend their dream, I guess, and to extend their careers and play in places where their sport is I guess cared a lot more about than what it is in New Zealand, and they can hopefully get recruited or scouted or whatever it is and go to those other countries. So I've always wanted to start up the girls rugby one as well, and I thought, I thought with the way that they did it this year and selecting some girls from each under 18s to go into camp with the boys as well, and being able to learn, I want to be able to, and this is an idea that I'm putting out there. I'm actually putting this out there to you, New Zealand Rugby Union, for the girls' side of it, that I would do. And this is for you guys to back me up on this as well. I would do my idea is that I would do a top 200, maybe not top 200, maybe like a top, maybe like a top 100 for girls rugby. And the purpose of it is that come next year, the same time around this time when rep season is on, by that time I would have a good idea. I'll do all the work, I'll do all the scouting, I'll do all the stuff that I do for the boys. Same thing with the girls, on a condensed list of 100. But I will scout out enough players to get a solid Blues under 18s team, a Chiefs under 18s team, Hurricanes under 18s team, Crusaders under 18s team, and a Highlanders under 18s team. I will scout out enough players to actually bring a full team of something like 28 players, 28, 29 players for each of those teams, that next year around the same time when boys have reps as well, that these 5 teams will be with the kids, with the girls that I've scouted and selected and approved by those within this area who also are talent IDs for girls, that they have a tournament for those 5 teams. Just tournament for those girls. And then we can finally pick a New Zealand secondary school girls team out of those 5 girls, 5 teams from that tournament. I will do all the scouting. I will find out who all the girls are. I will make sure I know which ones they are, their positions, what year they're in, and how they work in terms of how the competitions are worked in certain parts of the country, because not everyone is the same. Not everyone has the same competitions or number of games and things like that. Like the most rugby these girls get is when it comes down to sevens, with Condor sevens, which that's where I would start my scouting from, is from Condor sevens. But I want to do this for the girls so we can finally have a proper tournament where we can see 5 really good representative teams from all the super franchise rugby areas. Also, we'll be able to pick a proper New Zealand secondary schools team, which I think will be able to, if you're going to schedule games, they will be, and you could schedule games against the Auckland under 19s, the Taranaki under 19s, the Wellington under 19s, and then have them play those sorts of teams, because we don't have an Australian team or Fijian or anything like that with those girls teams. But it's so that these girls can actually So these girls can go into camp, be trained by all the top coaches that we have here in New Zealand, that they give to the boys at the same time. Also, so that they can all wear the representative, they can all wear the black jersey for the first time. Younger girls can see that that's a possibility and they can do it as well. And they have their chance to do it when they become year 11, 12, or 13. And that these girls can feel proud about that and have that same feeling that the boys get to have when they make New Zealand secondary schools or New Zealand Barbarians. Now, yes, this is going to be a lot for me because like it's been hard even just doing, different rankings from year 11, 12, and 13, and then school rankings altogether. But I feel like this is a massive opportunity that the girls should get, deserve to get, and we have enough good players now in the country that when we get those teams, they're going to be really decent rugby players. They're going to be very, very, very decent rugby players. And I think this will be a great opportunity for everybody. And I will do this, and it will just make scouting a lot easier for you guys. And because like you think about it, right? All the region teams, they all only picked like 5 girls. 5 girls. Some 7. That's all you picked. Out of a whole region of like Waikato Chiefs region, Taranaki, like Waikato, Bay of Plenty counties, you picked like 5 to 7 girls. 2 of those girls were playing for Bay of Plenty already. One of them was for Waikato. I think there were 2 girls. One girl was playing counties. There were girls from Auckland that were already playing the Auckland team. So really, they weren't even scouted girls. They were girls that they already knew they were going to make it. They're just still at high school. One's a year 12. Like one of the girls from Howick that I thought was real mean. She's still at Howick as a year 12 and playing for the women's team. My thing is like, what is she doing on the women's team? Where's the other level? Or is the talent non-existent that you have to go all the way to high school to pick up this girl to fill in your gaps? To me, it's just like, well, maybe the scouting's not really done that much. I want to see a bunch of high school girls play against each other, putting on the Blues, the Chiefs, the Crusaders, the Hurricanes, the Highlanders jersey, running out on the field, playing a tournament against each other. At the end of it, picking a New Zealand secondary schools out of all the girls that are sitting there, and then have them play some under-19 teams around the country. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a massive, massive mean idea that the girls are able to do this. And I'm only saying this now, and I think this is great timing now because if you watch Sevens, we have enough skilled girls, and this is where I give props to Touch and Tag for all these girls that play touch and tag growing up. Obviously, your mums and dads have put you guys into touch and into tag, and you've learned all these skills. You've learned the ball skills, a lot of footwork, playing in space, knowing how to, I guess, tackle or push or put pressure onto space that you're able to find your runners. Things like that have contributed massively to what rugby is now. Now that all these girls have grown up and now they're all in their teens, I think it's a great idea and a great time right now that once they're ripping up in sevens, we can transition them to 15s and making sure that we have a proper 15s tournament. I want to do this. I've spoken to some other ex-players, women ex-players that are around the country that and people that have been around women's rugby, and they feel like it's a great idea as well. Again, I just need your help. I will do the scouting. I'll do the work for you. And I know New Zealand rugby's not into that kind of stuff because I've been doing this for 7 years now for the boys, and they still don't like who I am. They still don't like what I do, and they still don't want to give me credit for that. But I know you guys are watching my website. You're listening to this right now, and you're going, if Herschel's got a great idea, but do we really want to give him the credit? Do we really want to acknowledge that this is a great idea and we should get him to help But then we have to admit that even the boys' side is doing a lot better now that he's jumped onto high school top 200. That's actually better. I can admit that when I first started high school top 200, I was in over my head and I was just kind of figuring things out on the run. But right now, it's money, man. You guys know it too. Now, I'm just trying to do this for the girls. And I have a soft spot for the girls too because I got 2 little girls. Granted that my little girls may not be rugby players or anything like that, especially my older girl who's not a rugby player. She's not coordinated at all. She's a dancer. She does waka armor. She does stuff like that. But my little girl, she might play rugby. Now, if there's not something not set up for my girls, then yeah, I would have a problem with that. So I would rather help the girls out right now, just in case. But this means that all these girls now get to have the opportunity to wear the black jersey, be trained and coached by ex-players, coaches, current players as well, making it known that we as rugby in New Zealand care about them. The Farah Palmer Cup will get so much better with all these girls going into those things, already have learned them stuff from those camps. I don't see what the problem is. And if there is a problem, you got to tell me what it is, because I don't see the problem here. I just see a lot of positives about this. What's the negatives? I don't see what the negatives are. Why is it going to be a negative? Because I see girls being prepared to go into the Farah Palmer Cup. I see girls getting the training that they will, and noted that like the first group of girls that go into this are going to change the game a lot for younger girls coming through. A lot, because I guarantee that there's going to be some year 11s in that team next year, some year 12s, and some year 13s. So we're going to have some repeat girls come from the year before and go and tell the other girls, man, this camp's mean. Loved it last year. It's only going to get better this year. And then just have that reputation of it, taking it back to their teams and going, let's get together as a team. Let's make sure we make these teams. Other thing that I want to talk about too is that we've got to, and I'm going to write this up as well. I'm going to write it up so that you can read it too, and that people and all the old fellas at the top that don't listen to podcasts and don't listen to guys like me, they can at least read it and go, yeah, I know you're on my website. Stop pretending like you're not. Here's the other thing. The Super 8 needs to happen in the girls' schools as well. I have this thing, and I don't know if it's true, but I'm just thinking out loud here, right? I have this thing that, and it's kind of like what rugby league is to traditional rugby schools. You're never going to see rugby league in Hamilton Boys or Auckland Grammar. You're going to see league boys, but you're never going to see rugby league teams. How you talk to Wesley College and see what it was like when they were trying to start league up. Terrible. Heaps of them hated the idea, even though a bunch of their kids were all league players anyway. It's just not hard. It's just not easy for schools to do that stuff. Now, I am kind of thinking that the Super 8, if there was a Super 8, do the girls have that same kind of, I guess, reserve for tradition of the school? Is it that they don't want netball girls to be turning from netball into rugby? And they don't want to let rugby into those schools. I mean, Hamilton Girls here is probably one of the best in the country. They had to split their team into 2 just so that there were enough teams to play. They had to have 2 first 15s. I saw St. Peter's and Manukura today. Fielding has a pretty good team as well. I know Christchurch Girls have a good team down there as well. With what's her name, Georgia Miller down there at Christchurch Girls, who's year 12 this year. And I think that the Super 8 for the girls needs to be a competition. There needs to be a Super 8 for the girls. Same schools. New Plymouth Girls, Hamilton Girls, Tauranga, Hastings, Napier, Rotorua, Palmy, having all those teams come together, making sure that they have making sure that all those girls' schools have a team, and make sure that it's a first 15 and an under 15s, just to get it going. First 15 and under 15s. And I think that needs to start so that rugby um, can have a base, I think, because competition's not too good just in one area. Sacred Heart girls over here in Hamilton have done really good as well. And beating one of the Hamilton girls teams, Sacred Heart College for girls schools over here. I think Dyerson over here was also had a team as well. But I think all the girls schools, the big girls schools in most areas, I think they should be like a sort of like a CNI competition as well for the schools that are not Super 8 school girls. So, finding out all those teams that are around the country that have a lot of girls, that have a girls' school that is interested in rugby, and to sort of start it up. They may have to bring in guys to come and coach them, or help coach the coaches that are there as well, just to start it all off, and then just to sort of get into it. But I mean, it has to kind of start somewhere. I think the Super 8 would be a great place to start, especially for this region and the Hurricanes region as well, because you're going to pretty much have a split of half the teams that are in the Hurricanes, and then half the teams that are in the Chiefs regions. And so if they were to do that, I think there'll be a great start. I think another one would probably have to be Wellington and Manawatu will probably have to get together as well, because if you have fielding girls, if you have the fielding girls team, Manukura and St. Mary's, and then finding the other girls teams that are around within that area, would also be another good competition. And I think that's something that needs to start off as well. We've already seen the level rise a lot when it comes to sevens, and it's really paying off. And I think this is a great time to move on it now. And again, I'm going to tell you, I will do the work for you guys. I will do the recruiting. I'll try and make sure I get in contact with as much coaches as I can. Say, send me footage. Let me do the stuff that I do. The same thing with the boys. And then I will be able to throw out a bunch of names to you guys and say, these are the girls that I like. Do you like those same girls? And then go back and forth, and then pick a solid 28 to make a Chiefs team, to make a Blues team, to make a Hurricanes, Crusaders and Highlanders, and have one massive tournament for those girls, just for those girls, and then pick a New Zealand secondary schools from those girls, and have a proper New Zealand secondary schools with a proper coaching staff, and have them play some provincial under-19s teams. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. But it just depends on you guys. Depends on you, rugby union. See what you guys want to do. And don't give me this that, we don't have money anymore because COVID, whatever. Because some reason we just found out that you could do that with the boys. So there's got to be something like that for the girls. Hold them all at one place. Make the first camp all the teams together then. Surely there's like a boarding school around that would open up their doors to that. They have their own teams, and then you could play them all together. Think about how it would be for these girls to all be sitting there in a cafeteria, all knowing that these girls have been picked up all around the country. They all have that common talent all together that's just new, and this is a new thing that they all get to be a part of. All looking at each other, all have the same goal in mind, that they all want to play sevens and they all want to play for New Zealand. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, why not start this? Hit me up and let's get to work. Let's move on to New Zealand secondary schools, and I'm going to do this real fast, right? Because you guys already know how I feel. First of all, with New Zealand secondary schools, obviously I don't agree with the picks because I already picked mine first, and so you already know who I thought who should have gone in and who I guess shouldn't have. That's not to say that the guys that did get picked didn't deserve it, because obviously that they did. They showed what they needed to show to the selectors to say that they were good enough. My problem is really the process of it is kind of what bugs me. Where they pick a player, a coach, someone like that, and then they give them a position, and they say, these are the guys that we like. Here's some footage on all of them. You bring us, you do your study, and then you give us your recommendation, or you give us your opinion on who you think's is good enough at this level. They do that, and so they give it out to all these different people from, like, not people from high school rugby, not people that follow high school rugby, just coaches, ex-players, current players, whatever. I don't care. And then they come back and they bring them their opinions, and they have a meeting, and they sort of discuss and all that kind of stuff back and forth. And then the head coach pretty much has his pick, and he goes yay or nay on whoever you pick, whatever. So to me, they are just picking guys that they just watch on film. They haven't actually followed them. They haven't actually seen them year in, year out, or followed them through from what they're doing. To me, that is a mistake in terms of getting to know who and how the players are from year in to year out. I've watched a lot of these kids all from year 11. Some of them I saw them from year 10. And I feel like I have a pretty good judgment on how a lot of these kids went from year to year to year. At the end of it, the head coach gets to choose and pretty much has the last say. Now, I know he doesn't follow first team rugby. Yeah, you tell me all that you want that you don't, yet you do. I know that you don't, bro. Come on. Now, the other thing that kind of annoys me, because like that thing is, I think if you're going to have selectors, leave them at first 15 level and let them watch them over some years. Pick the same guys and say, these are the guys that we want you to look at. Here's some other guys who are all year 11s, and then have them just watch first 15 rugby, under 15 rugby, and just follow kids all the way through like I do. So that they are able to get more of a sense of what this kid is about, or who this kid is, or how he's been playing. Knowing what he can do and knowing what he hasn't been doing, but that he has the ability he has that ability in him. He's just having a bad time, just a rough time, right? And I feel like that if they did it that way, they would have a better showing of what a player is and who a player can be. And they get to know who the player is. He's just not number 5 in the blue team. The other thing that bugged me, especially with this year, is that if based on footage, how are there so many Auckland players that were picked for this team? Just based on footage. I'm not saying they're not deserving, I'm just saying based on footage. Because you have a small sample size of Auckland teams. They never played their season. They barely got to half the season. Now, what sample size did you take from that to say that these boys were good enough to be in it when Super 8 played their whole season, CNI pretty much played their whole season apart from Wesley, Wellington played their full season, the UC Championship pretty much played their full season, and the Otago they all played their full season pretty much as well, with adjustments, but they still played their season. A lot of these guys still got 10, 12 games out of it. That's a pretty good sample size to 6. Now, my thing is just like, well, if you're taking out such a small sample size, there were a lot of guys playing really good in the space of 4 games, but may not be the most consistent guys at performing every single game. Especially if you don't know who the players are. I mean, I know who the players are, but I know you selectors don't. You just know them from the paper. I knew them from they were kids, and that's kind of where my argument comes out of. Is just like, well, you're basing it off of 6 games that you don't know how this kid actually copes with different things just through 6 games, and that's unfair to the selectors as well. But that's kind of my argument, and that's kind of my point as well. Is that like, well, you're selecting guys. The selection is just based on things that these selectors for each position are given, but the sample size is so small. If they had known them last year, I would be okay with it. I would feel fine about it. But I know that the selectors have changed position. Now you got new guys sitting in there, and they just select a bunch of guys that they just thought, oh, well, I saw him on TV. He was pretty good. Ken Laban talked about him quite a bit, and the commentators were always talking about it. So it's like, that's not how you judge them. Of course, the commentators are going to say good things about him. They're not going to say, what an idiot, he dropped the ball. Why the hell did he kick it? They're not going to say things like that. Of course they're going to talk them up. That's what commentators do. They'll just point out and exaggerate the truth. Now, I'm not saying that they're not. I'm not saying that they're not worthy of the selection, or that they haven't done their hardest to get ready for the season, and it's not their fault that the season's like this. But in terms of the selection, there's got to be a better way of doing this. You can't just base it off like 6 games. Anyone can have a 4-game run and get injured and go, well, before he got injured, he was doing great. It's like, yeah, that's just his run. That's not consistency. That's just a run of 4 games. Hell, I had to run a good 4 games. I was terrible at rugby. No, I wasn't terrible, but I wasn't like the greatest. But that's what bugs me so much about it. Players like I said, Jack Parker's like, how does he miss out? How does this guy miss out? I can't explain it. Like, I don't even know. If you watch the Super 8, that's the reason why they were so good. Jack Parker was he had a massive deal to do with that, of why they were so good. Even Jordan Hutchings. How the hell does this kid not make it? Did you guys watch Super Rugby? Did you watch the Super 8 rugby games? Did you not see Luffle every single game just destroy players on offense and defense? If you saw the one game on TV of Tauranga Boys, Vivini was the only guy that was, or Vivini and Curtis were the only 2 that were giving Hamilton Boys problems, and they couldn't get rid of Vivini. And really, it just came on a ref's call. 50-50, he could have stolen that ball. But the ref called it, oh, well, late to the ball. Ruck's already formed. Depends. Depends who you're talking to. Depends who's reffing the game. And Vivini, if you watched all his games, he was the same consistency in all his games. And it's not like the Super 8 teams didn't know him, because they knew him from last year and the year before that. They knew he was going to be a problem, and he was. But how does he miss this team? And the worst thing about this, right, and I talked about this too, is that the Blues and the Chiefs have to play each other. If Jordan and Vivini are on at the same time, Blues are going to have a problem. The Blues are going to have a problem. If you have Vinny in there, and you have Jordan, and you have Tirama Ruben in there, at 6, 7, and 8, hi, Uncle Roger's coming out with that one, man. That's going to be a problem, I promise you. It's going to be a problem. And I actually wish that Jack Parker did not sign with the Crusaders, only that he could play this game for the Chiefs as first 5. It's going to be Taha, of course. That's great. But if Jack's there, that's a different story because he's going to show them up in a different way. But that's the problem is that, and I knew this from the start that they were going to choose. And like people were saying, well, where did you get your information? You don't know what you're talking about. The team hasn't even been named. I was a day off. But they named the team, the New Zealand team, before they even had the rep games. Which when I was told, I thought, I think I must have this wrong because that doesn't sound right. Why would you pick the New Zealand team already and then have the rep teams play with the New Zealand team already been picked? What if those guys get outplayed? What if the New Zealand guys that you guys choose get outplayed in front of people? What happens then? How are you going to explain that? Because you know how I feel about the team that got selected. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I feel like some of those guys are too early. I feel like some of those guys are selected too early. This is a deep class, right? The players that we have this year are so good. They are just so good right now. But some of these guys are I think, are picked too early. We don't know how much they are. We don't know how much they can handle. We don't know how good they're going to be. We don't know the extent of how much they can play at a high level. That's my problem with everything. That's why I favor the stronger competitions over the lesser ones. That's why I favor the Super 8 and the 1A over the Wellington ones. Yeah, they have good players, but they also get to rest a bunch of games. They're not on the edge, playing on the edge, competitively on the edge all the time. They're not. Super 8 and the 1A, you're on the edge the whole time. Super 8, the CNI have a good stack of teams. But then they have a few guys at the bottom that they can rest on. Wellington, pretty much the whole thing you can almost rest on. You got basically 3 teams. This year, basically 3 teams. Rongotai is like a give and go. They were good, but kind of not sometimes. But Town, Silverstream, and Scots, that was pretty much about it. UC Championship was the same. As that competition was just so up and down. You didn't know who was consistent, who was not. Saint Stack was consistent for the most part of it, but played and lost some terrible games. Crushers was kind of the same. St. Thomas were up and down a little bit. Shirley was kind of the same, up and down. Nelson, you didn't know which Nelson was turning up. Christ College was also the same in that way. Rangioa seemed to be the strongest, most consistent team throughout the whole thing, but couldn't pass Christchurch twice. Should have won the first one. Second one's debatable. But even they get rests. In the UC Championship, they have probably the hardest travel. Yeah, I would say their one's probably the hardest travel, then probably the Super 8. But I always side with the stronger competition and the guys that are tested week in and week out. They pretty much have no rests. The 1A don't really have that many rests. They probably have 2 rests. And even those 2 games are physically up to speed. They're physically at that level. Maybe not skill wise for those bottom 2 or 3 teams, but the physicality is right up there. Super 8, you just don't. Even with the team that hasn't won any, like not a game, it's like you probably look at the scores and most of them are all really, really close. Then the Hamilton score is probably the only one that probably blows it out. But I just don't see how. And I'm not trying to favor Super 8 at all. But how are you going to argue with that competition if you watch the whole competition? I pretty much watched that whole competition. I saw most of the I saw a lot of the CNI because everyone was live streaming, which was great. Even with the Shirley, I saw all of Shirley's games. I saw pretty much most of Christchurch Boys' games. I saw a bunch of Christ College games. I saw a bunch of St. Bede's and also of Christ's, a few Rangiora ones, maybe 6, 7. Same with Marlborough Boys as well. I saw about 7 of theirs. And so like you got a really good sample size of people that are out there. But to miss out on some of those players that they missed out on, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wish I had the rights to put out just highlights just of players, because I would. I honestly would. I would just put highlights of players just by themselves. You could just go and check just one player every single week. One player. I'll just have a team of guys editing just one player at a time from every team, and you could just do it yourself. You could just do the scouting yourself of all his highlights. Even someone like Orion Kalolo, who missed out too. Macca Springer was another one. Ethan Martin was another one. Tavita Hanade Schuster was another one. It's like, how? How'd you miss these guys? I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I was like, but I don't know. I'm probably not even going to be able to go into these camps anymore. You know, they're just telling me to piss off. I was like, hey, you don't like our team? Get lost. I don't know. I'll see. I don't care about being denied and stuff. I was like, ugh. I was knocking on doors as a missionary for 2 years. You think I care about getting denied I was like, no, I've been screamed at, yelled at heaps. I don't care about that. But I'm going to go to these camps. I'm going to go to the New Zealand camp too. I want to go and watch all the boys. I want to see what everyone's like. I want to report back to you guys and show you guys, as well as all the young kids as well, what it's like to be at these camps. That's kind of like why I like going. I like going so I can also sharpen up my own IQ, rugby IQ as well. Then also go there and say, well, this is what you get to do when you come to these camps. So all these kids look at it and go, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that. And then even when they get to New Zealand, be like, yeah, I want to be a part of that kind of camp and be a part of that kind of environment and get that kind of coaching. Coaching, I love like listening to that strategy stuff and the whys and of why you do this and that and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm definitely going to be excited about this stuff. I don't know if I'm going to be invited to it. I don't know if they're going to welcome me in on it, but I'm going to be there. Until they tell me to go, then I'm going to be there. I'm going to be with my 2 little girls as well, running around St. Paul's, and as they have been so many times that we've been there before. But yeah. I'm looking forward to the final games this week. It's been a pretty cool season, even though it's been pretty effed up for most of it. Shout out to all the boys that have put so much effort into this year and so much commitment and drive and even mental toughness, man. Like, a lot of you boys don't know how mentally tough you are to go through a season like this with the situation that we've been in like this in New Zealand, and we're way better than everybody else in the world in terms of how this is going. But I really commend your guys' strength and mental strength and keeping this committed to the team and committed to the boys and committed to the drive and the goals that you guys have. I will get back to you guys again. Looking forward to the quad tournament that's coming up too, the one down in Nelson, which I couldn't go to. I was just so up in the air of, are we able to go watch the games and all that kind of stuff going on like Nelson if I can't even go to the game and watch it myself. And so I didn't really financially prepare for that kind of stuff. And so, I'll just have to watch it on TV. But still, I love watching that quad tournament. Yeah. Always send me all your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Let me know when I'm right and when I'm wrong. All that kind of stuff. This is High School Top 200. Herschel. Peace.